Believe not that in the land of Gondor the blood of Númenor is spent, nor all its pride and dignity forgotten. By our valor, the wild folk of the East are still restrained, and the terror of Morgul kept at bay, and thus alone are peace and freedom maintained in the lands behind us, bulwark of the West. I can think of no better quote that describes Boromir, the High Warden of the White Tower of Gondor, and the pride he holds for his kingdom. Hey everyone, Yoiston here, and I hope you all are doing well, wherever you are in Middle-earth. Today we will be discussing the history and life of Boromir of Gondor. I'll of course link some related and helpful articles and videos in the description and cards, so please check those out. My friends, thank you all so much for joining me today. Let's begin our tale concerning Boromir of the Nine Walkers. Born in the year 2978 of the Third Age, Boromir, who was named for the 11th Steward of Gondor, who was a warrior himself, was the eldest son of Steward Denethor II and Finduilas, sister of Prince Imrahil of Dol Amroth. His name meant steadfast jewel in a Sindarin Quenya hybrid. He was born 5 years before his brother Faramir, and though both would grow to be great men, it would seem that the blood of Númenor ran truer in Faramir and Denethor than in Boromir. Boromir and his brother would be the best of friends growing up, and though they were different in nature, with Boromir being stronger and more outwardly courageous, with interests in stories of battle and command, and Faramir being more interested in lore and music and the musings of Gandalf, the sons always maintained a great relationship with each other, not influenced by jealousy or grievances. Although alike to his father Denethor in looks and pride, Boromir, as told in the appendices of The Lord of the Rings, was more alike in nature to King Eärnur, whose valor and brashness overcame his regard of wisdom or pursuit of love. Indeed, Boromir would even inquire into the nature of the kings of Gondor when he was young, for as a boy he was greatly displeased that his father was not king, wondering how many centuries it would take for the stewards to become king. Denethor replied that not even 10,000 years would suffice in Gondor for such a thing to occur, even as it might take less time in other, lesser kingdoms. Perhaps this was vanity on Boromir's part, wanting his father to become king, and then for inevitably the kingship to pass to him. But greater was Boromir's love for the realm of Gondor than any vice he may have had throughout his entire life. Indeed, that strong love of Gondor would be a defining feature of the man, even as he grew into a mighty warrior of the late Third Age. His mother would pass away when he was 10, and his father would become more grim and distant after the event, but Boromir's valor did not wane. He grew to be a man of dark hair and gray eyes, standing at around 6 feet and 4 inches, or 1.93 meters tall. He would be the greatest warrior in Gondor by the time he was aged 40 or 41, by the time of the War of the Ring, except for perhaps Prince Imrahil, his uncle, or a few others, in the whole realm. Boromir would be recognized as the Captain General of Gondor and the High Warden of the White Tower, and he would also hold the Horn of Gondor, an heirloom of the stewards. But his valor in combat would soon be tested. In the days before the first assault on Gondor that began the War of the Ring in earnest, a dream would come to Faramir, and then a similar one to Boromir, one of prophetic meaning. In it, the eastern sky grew dark, and there was thunder, where in the west a pale light lingered, and a voice said, "Seek for the sword that was broken. In Imladris it dwells. There shall be counsels taken, stronger than Morgul spells. There shall be shown a token that doom is near at hand, for Isildur's bane shall waken, and the halfling fourth shall stand." Sometime later, on June 20th of 3018 of the Third Age, Sauron attacked Osgiliath, and the Brothers of Gondor led the West in its defense. After Gollum had been captured by a man named Aragorn, Sauron sent out the Nazgul to attack Osgiliath, so that they may test the defenses of Gondor and make the Nazgul appear in Gondor, but it was actually Sauron's plan to send them forth across Anduin to hunt for the ring. Boromir would lead the men and his little brother against the darkness of Mordor, and he proved to Sauron the strength that Gondor, descended from Westernesse, still possessed. The men fought back against the orcs of Mordor and Morgul, as well as their allies among the Easterlings and Haradrim, until the last bridge was forced to be destroyed to prevent the enemies from further coming into Gondor. Many men of Gondor perished during the attack, and Boromir and Faramir, as well as 2 other men, survived only by swimming after the destruction of the bridge. Boromir would say that the defeat of the men was attributed to a power of fear issued from a great black horseman. Indeed, this was one of the Nazgul, and after the bridge was broken, Mordor broke off the assault, so the Nazgul could go north and begin their hunt for the ring. After this, Boromir would decide to investigate the dream he and his brother had, and though Faramir wanted to seek from Ladris, Boromir took this journey upon himself due to its danger. But he promised to return to Gondor before long after solving the dream, and so Boromir left for Rivendell in the north on July 4th of 3018. He took the road through Rohan, where he had many friends and allies, alike to the friendship Cirion had with the men of Eorl of old. But being unfamiliar with the Northlands, Boromir did not perhaps take the fastest of roads, taking the old north-south road that was in ruins. This brought him to Tharbad, a Númenórean harbor of old, where he took a dangerous bridge that took him over Greyflood. He would soon lose his horse, and was forced to walk the rest of the way to Rivendell. When at last, after 110 days, Boromir reached Rivendell, he met with Gandalf, a friend of Gondor and the mentor of his brother. Gandalf bade him come to the Council of Elrond, where much was revealed. This would be so, and it answered the riddles of his dreams. For Boromir found the broken sword of Elendil, the halflings of the Shire, and Isildur's bane, the One Ring. He even met a person he did not expect to meet, one descended from Elendil, Isildur, and Aneri in all, and the heir to the throne of Gondor, Aragorn. Boromir would come to have great respect, admiration, and reverence for the man, as Aragorn's existence brought hope to the small boy who had wished for there to be a king in Gondor once more, since turned into a great man. Boromir would explain much to the council about Gondor, the attack on Osgiliath, and he would remember the honor of Rohan during the meeting, knowing that they did not fall into thraldom under Sauron, even if some of their horses had been stolen for Sauron's use. Boromir also presented a controversial belief that the One Ring could be used by Gondor to fight back and beat Sauron, for it was Gondor that was the bulwark against him. Elrond explained that it could not truly be used for such a purpose, as the ring was itself evil. However, it seems this argument did not truly convince Boromir. After the council, since Boromir planned on returning to Gondor anyway, to lead its defense against Mordor, he joined the Fellowship of the Ring, which was planning to make its way to Mordor to destroy the ring. Upon setting out, it was even clear then that Boromir would bring a certain level of folly to the mission, as his nature was not one of secrecy but of open battle. He blew his horn at the departure from Rivendell, which was ill done. But his strength would be needed in the days ahead, as well as his tact. It was his wisdom for each member of the company to carry wood when they came to the pass of Caradhras, and that advice stopped the company from freezing to death in that January of 3019, for Boromir carried wisdom, having lived so close to the White Mountains. His strength was also needed to plow through the snow and carry the hobbits to safety. When the company came back down from the mountains, Boromir recommended that they take the road either through the Gap of Rohan or the road through West Gondor south of the White Mountains. Gandalf said the former was too dangerous due to Saruman, and the latter would take far too long. Thus the company came to Moria, though Boromir liked that path not. While waiting outside the doors of Durin, Boromir threw stones in the murky water, and Frodo told him not to, for the water made him wary, and this had alerted the Watcher. Later in Moria, Boromir would prove his prowess in combat, fighting in the chamber of Mizarbul and hewing at the arm of a cave troll. Even as the orcs pursued them, Boromir sounded his horn and gave the enemy pause, but eventually Durin's bane would come forth, and though the terror of it was great, Boromir, alongside his friend and King Aragorn, attempted to charge the beast and come to the aid of Gandalf on the bridge of Khazad-dûm, and Boromir yelled Gondor in his battle cry, ready to face certain death. But they were too late, and Gandalf broke the bridge and fell. The company continued forth, and though Boromir had heard strange and frightening tales of the Golden Wood and advised against going there, they went to Lothlorien and Aragorn proved him wrong. But Boromir, at least, for his sake, would be frightened indeed, as the Lady Galadriel tested his mind and thoughts, and seemed to offer Boromir something that he declined in his mind. Perhaps Galadriel tested him by offering him a chance to have the ring for himself. This may have been so, for Boromir's mind would grow on the ring as they traveled down the Anduin in boats from Lorien. Boromir would be given a golden belt from the Lord and Lady. Boromir would begin to show signs of great anxiety, much to the dismay of Merry and Pippin who were on his boat. He would give Frodo uneasy glances, bite his nails, and even mutter to himself. Again, I wonder if this all began with what Galadriel said to him in his mind. Boromir would still aid the company, however, in alerting them against orcs at Sarn Geber, but ever his mind was on Frodo, the Ring, and Gondor. They would continue down Anduin until at last a decision about where the company's path would take them was in front of them. Frodo did not wish to go to Gondor, and had said as much, but he took time at Parth Galen to weigh the options away from the group. During the debate on where the company should go, Boromir left the Fellowship soon after and found Frodo near Amanhen, an ancient seat of sight made by Gondor, for they were on the outskirts of Boromir's realm. Boromir tried to convince Frodo to go to Minas Tirith with him, and when he wouldn't, the man hoped Frodo might lend him the ring, so he could use it in the defense of his people. And when Frodo denied all else, Boromir's love for his home and people, and corruption from the ring, came into his heart. He then tried to take the ring from Frodo, being much stronger than the small hobbit, but Frodo eluded him by putting the ring on. Immediately afterward, Boromir felt such sorrow and guilt for what he had done. He called out to Frodo, but got no answer. Before long, Boromir made his way back to the rest of the Fellowship, who noticed his absence, and he said he argued with Frodo, and Frodo disappeared, leaving out the full account of his deeds. Merry and Pippin ran off immediately looking for Frodo, and Aragorn commanded Boromir to guard them no matter what he had done before. Indeed, Boromir took this to heart, and quickly found Pippin and Merry, who were surrounded by many orcs from Isengard soon after. Boromir the Mighty, the Strong, in that hour, repented for any misdone deeds of his past, and the man protected those who could not defend themselves. Many were the orcs that felt the bite of Gondor's steel in that glade, but there were too many. The horn of Gondor was sounded, and it was heard by Aragorn, and it was even heard by Denethor and Faramir in the White City of Gondor. But many arrows were loosed by those orcs, and many met their mark. The hobbits were taken, and Boromir rested against a tree, pulling arrows out of his body. When Aragorn found him, Boromir confessed that he had tried to take the ring from Frodo, and apologized for his actions. He said that the halflings, not specifying which ones, were bound and taken, and were likely not dead. In Boromir's final breath, his thoughts laid with his city and people. He bade farewell to Aragorn and told him to go to his city and save the people of Gondor. Boromir said he had failed, but as Aragorn said, he had conquered. Boromir smiled, and then he passed, leaving the day in which he did perhaps the worst deed of his life, but also perhaps the most honorable and greatest deed of his life. Gimli and Legolas arrived there soon after, and Boromir was given a funeral, wherein he was placed in a boat from Lorien, one that was said not to sink, and with his shattered horn and sword upon his lap, and the weapons of the orcs laid at his feet. For indeed, as Aragorn said, Boromir had conquered. Thus he was sent over the falls of Rauros and given back to Gondor, while Aragorn and Legolas sang a lament for him. That was on the day of February 26th of 3019, and Boromir was 41 years old when he passed. Some days later, his horn shards would be found by men of Gondor on the banks of Anduin, and they would go to Denethor, and Faramir, either in a vision or reality, would see the boat carrying his brother go past him on the river. It is said the Anduin took him out to the sea, and Boromir found his long rest in the waters that had once taken his people to Middle-earth, where they would create Gondor. Boromir's death, however, would influence much in the coming days and months. Theoden would acknowledge him and his death. Faramir would try to live up to the legacy of his brother, which would shape his stewardship of Gondor later on in life, and Denethor would come closer to breaking because of his son's death. And Frodo and Faramir would both discuss and remember Boromir when they first met in Ithilien. Aragorn in the end would save Gondor, fulfilling Boromir's only hopes in life and his wish before death. These are some of the few influences Boromir had on the world after his death, but surely this hero would never be forgotten. And so we come to the end of our tale about Boromir, the High Warden of the White Tower. From the tale of Boromir, we see that, though we may at times struggle with temptation, and we may sometimes fail to do the right thing, it is never too late for us to prove our honor and valor, and to make amends by doing what is good. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed this epic character history on Boromir. If you did, please be sure to hit that like button and share this with a friend. What are your thoughts, questions, additions, and corrections on Boromir? Let me know in the comments below. For me, especially as I get older, I see how great of a character Boromir is. He shows the imperfections of men, but even in those imperfections, we should still strive to amend our mistakes and do what is right for our people. He also provides a good dynamic to Aragorn, for Aragorn is who men aspire to be like, and Boromir is more akin to men as we truly are. He is quite an amazing character. To further support the channel, please check out our music channel, Facebook, Twitter, merch, and Patreon for a podcast and Discord server. All of those links are in the description below. I want to shout out our Valar tier patrons: Adrian De La Torre, Chris Ortner, Peter Shepard, Jonathan Putnam, Mark Kralik, Blair Scouten, Tobias Goldner, Ryan Ramsey, Adam Rink, Merton, and John Hume. Thank you all so much, it means the world to me. Finally, don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell button to join the Men of the West and all of the Free Peoples today, and I'll see you all again next week with a video on the Perithil, the half-elves of Middle-earth. Everyone, thank you all so much for joining me on this adventure. Until the next one, my great friends.